All right.
Okay,
Miss
so
Faith, are you back?
yes, I am. Can you
All
hear
right.
me properly?
Now it's better now. It's better now. Mr. Swale,
Okay.
let's start. Yeah.
Okay. Good morning to you, Miss Faith and Dr. Daniel.
Good morning, Mr. Sadike.
Morning to you.
Oh, wow. So today is the 24th day of April 2022, and our esteemed viewers, you're welcome to our FIS One On One monthly program that is brought to you by Fridaus Integrated Services Limited, and whereby we're going to look at different aspects that are affecting the world, but especially those affecting our continent, Africa. My name is Adeke Mary Joy, the media manager and your host for today's session, and I'm tuning in all the way from Uganda. And in today's session, we're going to look at a very common and disturbing subject matter, but rarely talked about in Africa because it is somewhat normal and rooted in the African tradition, and that is child marriages. Joining me to discuss the causes and the effects of child marriages in Africa are two special guests. One is Miss Osemeke Ozioma Faith, and the other is Dr. Daniel Arok Awol. Introducing our first guest, that is Dr. Daniel. He is a South Sudanese national, the founder and executive director of Community in Need Aid, that is CINA, a leading NGO that was founded in 2010 in South Sudan, and it is delivering child protection, gender-based violence, education, healthcare, and livelihood interventions, that is in relation to children and families that are affected by conflicts and disasters in 5 out of 10 states in South Sudan. Dr. Daniel is a medical doctor by profession and a child protection specialist by training and practice. He is a member of the Strategic Advisory Group of the Global Child Protection Area of Responsibility and of Global Child Protection and Education in Emergency Collaboration Framework that is based in Geneva. He is not only that, but he has worked for over 15 years of experience in child protection and gender based violence programming in both emergency, recovery, and development contexts. Dr. Daniel has been involved in local policy reviews on child marriage in South Sudan, planning, designs, and management of child protection and gender based violence programs. He has research interest on child protection and adolescent issues, and is also an advocate and researcher on the localization of humanity aid or humanitarian aid. And he has co authored in a study that is exclusion of local actors from coordination leadership in child protection. Dr. Daniel is currently a final year resident pursuing a Master's of Medicine in Family Medicine from Makerere University, that is found in Uganda, and holds an MBBS degree from the University of Juba in South Sudan. Dr. Daniel, you're welcome.
Thank you, Odeke, for that introduction. Pleasure to join the team today. Thank you.
Yes, we're happy to have you here. And our next guest is Miss, Miss Faith Osemeke Ozioma. She's a couple and marital psychologist, a special and spiritual therapist, and the founder of ARAL, which is a multi venture organization with huge success rates in couple and marital counseling. She's not only that, but she's also a business person and a speaker, a life coach, a singer. She loves learning, enjoys writing, and is also the author of the Daily Nugget, that is a special publication on the ARAL social platform, and holds meaningful conversations that is promoting spiritual and psychological well being among people. Miss Faith, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so Our major topic is on child marriages, but first we need to understand the roots. First of all, who is a child according to you, Miss Faith?
Okay, according to me, um, I'll say a child is a younger humans, right? But having said that, who a child is subjective, right? To UNC, United Nations Corporations, Conventions on the Rights of the Child, and according to African Charter, on the rights and welfare of a child is anybody below 18 years with child marriage in view. So, in the context of what our topic is, because a child can be defined as, like I said, like as the young of humans in dictionary. But if we want to define a child in view of today's topic, then I'll say a child is anybody below 18 years according to the law.
Thank you very much, Miss Faith. Dr. Daniel, do you have a contrary definition or understanding of who a child is?
I think my colleague has given a very broad definition of a child. And it's true that a child is a person under the age of 18 years. And I would want to add that even if the laws of a particular country might set an earlier legal age for adulthood or allow for majority to be attained at an early age, it is still legally right to define a child as a person under the age of 18 years, despite that some of these countries have laws that allow adulthood to be defined from the age of 15 years and so forth. And of course, this is a definition that includes both girl child and a boy child. And as she put it, this is according to the 1989 United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, CRC, and the 1990 African Charter on the Rights and the Welfare of the Child. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that elaborate definition. Now, we have defined what a child is, but we're dealing with child marriages. So, could you please tell us, Dr. Daniel, what do you think constitutes marriage in Africa?
Marriage in Africa implies a union between a man and a woman entered into with the free and full consent of both parties, and in which both parties enjoy equal rights. That understanding I've given you, it's from Maputo Protocol. But more than that, marriage and union in Africa also means any of the other diverse forms of interpersonal union, could be formal or informal, and whether it's formalized or recognized under any system of law, custom, society, or religion, and whether this is established to form a familial bond. What this means is marriage in Africa could be any arrangement, could be formal or informal, could be under customary laws or religious laws or state law, but it refers to a union between a man and a woman who have entered into this agreement with free and full consent. However, in Africa, the keywords to underline is that free and full consent. In most cases, marriages in Africa, and especially in the topic we are talking today, do not involve a full and free consent of both parties, and especially the girl child. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Daniel. Miss Faith, what do you think constitutes marriage in Africa?
Okay, I agree largely with what Mr. Daniel has said. But I like to say that, first of all, the union in Africa is more subjective since it has to do with people's ethnic group. It largely depends on people's ethnic groups, cultural practices. So this most times religion, etc. and the rest. This most times is what constitutes marriage in Africa. So what I mean by that is if I'm a Nigerian, and I adhere to the laws of Nigeria, and maybe and if I'm a Christian belonging to a cultural ethnic group, say Igbo, what will constitute my marriage is what marriage is first according to the law, what constitutes marriage according to the law of my country, according to my ethnic group, and then according to my belief. Having said that, if my ethnic group is Igbo, and in Igbo, what constitutes marriage is the interference of my parents, then, and if that is what is dominantly practiced, then what will constitute my marriage, even if I'm in Africa, is what my family thinks. So it's maybe because according to the ethnic group I highlighted, which is Igbo, it will now depend on my parents, the family, instead of what my colleague has said. I don't know if I was able to explain that.
Yes, Miss Faye, thank you very much. You have ably explained that, how you would view the marriage concept in Africa and so forth. So, Miss Faith, could you please tell us what do you think causes child marriage in Africa? Just two reasons.
Okay, I believe what causes marriage in Africa largely is the mindset of the family and the partners or the players in view. So what I mean by that is if the mindset of a culture, yes, if the mindset of a culture promotes um, child marriage, then because I belong to that ethnic group and cultural practice, that will promote child marriage. So largely depends on the mindset of you know of the individuals involved.
Okay. So, any other thing apart from the mindset of the culture, what else do you think would cause child marriage in Africa?
Um, Poverty, education, I think all the other causes are linked to the mindset. Because if we say because of poverty, or if I say because of education, lack of education, or poor knowledge, whatever it is, it stems from the mindset of the individuals.
True, surely. So, thank you very much for that. Dr. Daniel, do you have a contrary understanding of the causes? Would you say that no, the causes do not stem from the mindset, but stem from something else, or there are other causes? What would be your view?
I thank you, moderator. I think that's the biggest question for the day that we need to bring in perspectives into it, and I definitely agree with my colleague Faith in terms of saying that is the mindset, because one factor that can explain that point, it's the issues of culture and religion. But before that, I would want to expound more on the well-known causes of child marriages in Africa. And I have a sketchy diagram I'd worked in the past in my work, where I had an analysis of causes and effects of child marriage in Africa using well-known Ishikawa diagram or fishbone analysis, where you can brainstorm on the root causes of an issue, and then, of course, represent it on a scale or on the bone of a fish to be able to know what are the causes and which one leads to the effects. So using that scenario I have in mind, I'd want to take you through some of the common causes of child marriage, the primary and secondary causes. And the well-known one to start with, it's the poverty. Poverty itself, it's a major cause of child marriage, and it's also a factor that wasn't its impact and consequences of being married at an early age. It is linked, of course, with lack of access to education, as Faith said it, but then child marriage tends to be more prevalent in poorer countries and among poorer sections of any given country. For example, I had a study which involved some countries, and I looked through recent data that shows in Mali and Mozambique, which are two countries in which half of girls are married before 18 years, at least three quarters of their population live on less than $2 per day. In DRC, the prevalence of child marriage is 50% in rural Katanga and Oriental provinces, and against actually 18% in urban Kinshasa. That shows poverty, which is prevalent in rural locations, account for a big prevalence of child marriage. This correlation is also evident with household level income, where girls from poor families more likely get married as children. For instance, in Gambia, it was shown that about 63% of children from poorest Gambian households were more likely to get married before 18 years, compared to 29% from richer households. How does poverty lead to child marriage? It's by exacerbating the vulnerabilities of children and the economic burden of parents to care for them. You see, economic difficulties can make a child marriage seem like an attractive option for parents and possible even for children themselves. For example, in post-conflict South Sudan, where I come from, but also in DRC, this situation, this instability prevented women from accessing resources, basic services, and power. And then this in turn results to feminization of poverty and widespread gender discrimination in all areas of development. In some other countries, some evidence shows that teenage girls actually sometimes get forced to marry men older than them because of economic prospect of their families and to support their brothers' education. In this way, you could see that even the whole family may be affected by poverty, but the impacts of this actually disproportionately affect girls and women. In the Dinka areas and newer areas of South Sudan, but also in Mozambique, it was shown that girls sometimes view primarily are viewed as economic resource. Yeah, you see, when they attain their adolescence, they are exchanged for their family's gain in form of dowry and payment. And so men who take them as wives would actually look at getting a gain from these girls in form of the labor that they will provide at home and in form of children that they will bear. So the family of the bride sometimes receive this bride price or dowry in the form of money or cattle or other commodities, yeah, as an economic transaction, so that they're able to alleviate their suffering that comes from poverty. And it's so high in countries like South Sudan, where you could see a bride price could go as far as more than 100 cows. You see, so the issue of poverty is real and is a very serious cause for child marriage. But also, as she said, lack of access to education. You see, education empowers girls to be economically and socially independent, and therefore it reduces vulnerability to child marriage. And this explains why rates of child marriage are highest in countries with lower education and where there is consistent correlation between lack of access to education and child marriage within those countries. It also explains why educating adolescent girls has been an important factor in increasing the age of marriage observed across some of those regions. So poverty and culture as well contribute to lack of access to education. And you see, if education becomes costly because of poverty, directly or because of other factors, a family in poverty may decide to educate only some of their children. And in this case, in a cultural understanding that boys represent the family line, it would mean that they would be favored for education opportunities over girls. And this is common in South Sudan, in many other countries, like in Sabini region of Uganda, where I am currently. Girls consistently perform poorly in school, and they are given early in marriage. See, so education attainment for such women is strongly correlated with household income. Yeah, with women living in richer households being more than 2 times more likely to be literate compared to those from poor households. So cultural ideas that position women and girls as responsible for care work can also be barriers to girls' education. And this has been reported from South Africa and many other countries. And culture, as we all know, and religion are serious causes of child marriage. You see, countries like Niger, which is the #1 country in the whole world on record of child marriage with a prevalent of 76%, it's predominantly a Muslim country. 98% of populations are Muslim. You see, but you see in other countries, even where Islam or religion, Christianity is not a problem, culture is highly patriarchal, and these attitudes toward women and girls perpetuated by culture and religious norms do not only render girls more vulnerable to child marriage, but also they actively promote it. In several of these countries, especially Islamic, highly Islamic populated countries, local tradition interpret Islamic scripture as permitting and in some instances actually encouraging child marriage. You see, this is a key reason why the prevalence of child marriage is high in some of those countries. For instance, as I said, in Nigeria and in Gambia, in Niger, in Cameroon, Islamic religion is predominant. And in most of these countries, influential religious leaders sometimes explicitly support the practice of child marriage. And actually, they voice strongly position to campaigns against it. I read an article where a local interpretation of religious texts actually reportedly stated that a girl should have her first menstruation under her in-laws' roof. And you see, this practice comes from countries like Cameroon, deeply rooted into Islamic religion. And you found there, actually, one of Cameroonian religious leaders stated that if it means confronting the law, actually he cannot go against the holy book, the Quran, meaning he values the scriptures supporting child marriage much more than the effects this could cause to the girl child. Even in countries where we stay, South Sudan, in Uganda, actually in Uganda, Muslims in Sabine region of Uganda are similarly encouraged to marry their young daughters to fellow Muslims, and marriage itself is considered a right of passage, bringing girls to womanhood. In Kenya, Uganda, Gambia, child marriage is it's perceived to offer some form of child protection because it prevents girls from getting into sex work. The nomadic Saburu community of Kenya, for example, encourage girls to marry at an early age on the basis that marriage will prevent them from becoming sex workers. So in many of these countries and communities, if girl is not married by age 15, she's considered flawed and an outcast under perception that she will bring bad luck to the family.
Dr.
A very
Bello,
serious cause
Dr.
is
Daniel,
conflict. Um, yes.
there's a point you mentioned on actually parents moving their children to get married, the society, and so forth. Please tell us who has the right to actually determine when someone should get married? Does the parent have exclusive rights to determine if their daughters should get married at the age below 18?
The parents do not have right. Who has the right uh, to determine who should get married? It should be the girl child herself. Why? Because the law, the provision from Article 16.2 of Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women stated that women should have the same right as men to freely choose a spouse and to enter into marriage only with their free and full consent. And it added that the betrothal, meaning engagement, and marriage of a child shall have no legal effect, meaning even when the child grows up later, this child can confidently say that I was not part of the decision. I had not consented. I didn't know the arrangement. So the law it states clearly that the child with full and free consent must be the one to determine when to marry. And free and full consent in the context of marriage actually entails non-coercive agreement to the marriage with full understanding of the consequences of giving consent. Consent is not free and full in circumstances where one of the individual is not sufficiently mature to make an informed decision about a life partner. So a child inability to give full and free consent cannot be supplemented or cured with addition of parental consent. A full consent requires a complete consent by the person consenting. So when a child has not consented because she is a child, it means she's not part of that decision to marry, despite the decision that can be made by the parents. Thank you.
So, thank you very much, Dr. Daniel. Miss Faith, would you agree that it is actually the girl child herself who has the right to make the decision as to when to marry, or you'd have a contrary view?
Um, my answer depends on where we're looking at it from. So, according to law, like my colleague explained, it is the consent of the players. I would not like to call them children, since, according to law, anybody that is allowed to get married should be somebody that is 18 years. That's the chronological age. So we're now saying that, in other words, it's just adults that are allowed to get married. Having said that, because Africa is a country that looks at, that considers ethnic groups, cultural practices, or that allow these things as interference or religion. So what um if it is the parents that is allowed to make that kind of decision, largely depends on what community or where that child stems from and what they think. So according to law, this is it. And why I'm coming from this view is, in Nigeria, yes, the law has been, according to the African Charter and UN Convention, a child is supposed to, whoever is supposed to get married is supposed to be somebody that is 18 years and above. But in Nigeria, just 25 states has adopted that, and that's because of the system we practice. 11 states have not accepted that. Now, within that 11 states, okay, I will not say they are yet to accept. I will not say they have not. They are yet to accept that. Within that 11 states that are yet to accept that, what, when you ask them this question, their answer will not be according to the law. So I largely believe that this is highly subjective. But because I agree with what the law says, I'll say to me, it has to be the consent of the adults. And by adults, I mean people that are both 18 years.
Thank you very much, Miss Faith. So, in that context, wouldn't you say that actually child marriage is one of the ways of pregnancies among
Sorry, I
youth?
didn't hear the question.
Oh, I was saying, couldn't you say that child marriage is one of the ways of preventing unwanted pregnancies among
Of
youth?
course not. Unwanted pregnancy is not in the context of child marriage. It is unwanted. What makes pregnancy unwanted? So even if whether in child marriage, whether in a normal marriage, if a child is unwanted, it is unwanted. It doesn't depend on the context, child marriage.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Faith. Dr. Daniel, would you have a contrary view to that?
I think I agree with Faith. That is not true because in legal lens, in the first place, if we had effective laws prohibiting child marriage and actually holding perpetrators accountable, including parents themselves, the girl child actually won't get pregnant in the first place. Unfortunately, marriage laws in sub-Saharan Africa have provisions that allow children to marry under customary law. And you see, if they become pregnant, irrespective of their age, it's culturally acceptable as a right approach to protect young women from premarital sex and consequences of unintended pregnancy and also sexually transmitted infections. But this customary guarantee is what we must aim, yeah? But we can do that by ensuring that state laws, constitution overrides customary laws, and they are effective and law enforcement mechanism in play because it is the culture which says let's marry the girls off to prevent unwanted pregnancy. But the causes of child marriage are many, as we've already seen. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
please,
you.
can I see?
Yes, Miss Faith.
Okay, I would like to add that the word unwanted marriage can be looked at from according to law, according to marriage, child marriage, according to adult marriage, and according to an individual. So according to law, customary law or the law enacted by any legislature, right? Unwanted pregnancy can be, okay, let me put it in this context. If I'm a girl child, say I am below 10 years and I get pregnant, to me that child is unwanted. Maybe to the law where I belong to, it is unwanted. If I am married, say I am 35, and I feel I do not have the resources to take care of a child, and maybe I do not want to have a child, but something happens, I have a child. In that context, that child is unwanted. What makes pregnancy unwanted, I think, largely depends on the players as it refers as it contains the law where they belong to or whatever belief that governs them. So with that in view, because if we say if we want to look at the context on unwanted pregnancy, I don't think we should just look at it as in just based on law or what is predominant. I think we should look at it largely on both the psychology of the society and the individuals, whether the children or adults, as it were.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Faith, for that elaborate knowledge on unwanted pregnancies in relation to marriages, and it not being only confined to child marriages but to all kinds of marriages. So then here would be my question. Are there any advantages to child marriage?
Is that to me? Is the question to me? Sorry.
Yes, please. Yes, please, Miss Faith.
Okay. Okay. Um. Wow. Are there advantages to child marriage? I think people might argue that okay, when you get when you get married early, you grow up with your child, or when you get married in time, you grow with your child. I or they'll say it will help alleviate poverty. You know, these might be what they'll look at and say, okay, these are the advantages. But if you look at the effects, first off, child marriage, if you get married as a child, I don't think that is in time. That might be before time. I don't know, but that's not in time. So, because the effect is disastrous both to the players and to the people at large. I don't think that is an advantage. And if you say, okay, it alleviates poverty, because I believe poverty cannot be alleviated um, because of child marriage. So even if you get a lot of money, the mindset that made you to give out your child will definitely channel you to making further wrong decisions that will make you go back to the point where you need more money and then you need to give out more children. So that debunks the advantage. So I don't think there is any advantage, you know, to um, getting married as a child. Seeing the disadvantages are just as obvious.
Thank you very much, Miss Faith. Dr. Daniel, do you agree that we do not have any advantage to child marriages, or you'd say no, actually, there are advantages to child marriage?
I definitely agree that there are no no advantages whatsoever. You see, as Faith put it, um, what the society, what the African societies believe are advantages are actually some little gains that they get, especially in relation to temporary alleviation of financial hardships. I won't say that it eradicate poverty, because poverty cannot be easily eradicated. Even in instances where there is high dowry payments, especially like we have a scenario in South Sudan, you might have read it some 4 years ago. A very rich businessman married a young girl, 17, and paid 530 cows, a number of cars, and a lot of dollars, about $10,000. But I'm telling you all that. Why? Because much as people believe that parents marry their daughters off out of poverty, actually that poverty doesn't get go. It's largely spent on preparing and actually dressing up the bride for her wedding. Yeah. And in some places where I come from, this dowry is used by the dowry off. And so you won't find these resources available. But also it's argued that when you marry early, these girl children will have more children in their lifetime. Like they would get up to 26% more children over their lifetime compared to when they marry are 18 years and above. So if you want to have 12 children, they argue you start marrying 14 and you'll be able to have those children. But you see, this is to the advantage of the society, but not to the girl child. It also has its economic burden. What would you do? How would you bring up these children? Some some cultures believe that child marriage prevents babies from wedlock. Yeah, but in the first place, if we keep girls in school, they won't get pregnant out of wedlock. If they are not raped, if they are not abducted, if they are not exposed to sex work, if they are not forcefully married off during conflicts, you will still be able to prevent children born out of wedlock. So whatsoever, there are no advantages. Those are culturally constructed disadvantages to the girl child, which people think are advantages. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Daniel. Since both agree that actually there are no advantages of child marriage, then I will pose a question to you, Mr. Daniel. What do you think are the effects of child marriages? Because at least if there is no advantage, there must be an effect, whether positive or negative. This would probably be the negative side. What are the negative effects of child marriages?
Thank you, moderator. There are so many negative effects of child marriage to the girl child and to her child and to her family as well, to the society and to the nations, to Africa. You see, to the girl child, there are enormous physical effects, negative physical effects. One, it's maternal death. Evidence shows that girls which are 10 to 14 years old are 5 times more likely to die during pregnancy or during childbirth compared to older women. And this results from complications like obstructed labor, preeclampsia, where a girl child or mother develops high blood pressure during pregnancy, postpartum hemorrhage, that is bleeding during or immediately after delivery, HIV, malaria, and so forth. And why do they suffer? Because these are actually children bearing children. A child cannot bear a child, and you don't expect them not to die. They also suffer from HIV and other sexually transmitted infections. And child marriage actually has been seen to have increased vulnerability to HIV and other sexual transmitted illnesses, which are actually related to reduced ability of the girl child to negotiate condom use, yeah, marrying to older men who are more likely to have been exposed to sexual transmitted infections, probably because of their polygamous marriages, which expose the girl child in turn to the partner's multiple lifetime sexual partners. In Africa, girls are 2 to 6 times more likely to get HIV than boys. But a very drastic effect, a very bad one, and I did a research on that, it's obstetric fistula. Obstetric fistula it's a complication which when that time of labor pain, she's trying to push the baby, but because her pelvic bones are not ready to bear the child, she is sustaining a pressure, yeah, of the fetal head on the vaginal wall, and this causes breakdown of tissues on the vaginal wall and on the bladder. And so this forms a fistula, a hole, yeah, between the vagina and the bladder wall or the rectum. after necrosis, after the fall of these tissues. And so what happens as a result of this hole is that urine or feces will just flow. There will be incontinence, yeah, because the nerves around these structures paralyzed, and so they will constantly be passing feces, urine without notice, and they will constantly be smelling bad. And as a result of that, they will be humiliated, there will be straxism, and ultimately developing depression. That's a very sad one. And it's so common. They hide out, they are stigmatized because they can't speak to anyone about this challenge they are facing. Some of them also get exposed to cervical cancer, malaria, and other diseases, yeah, because of low or reduced immunity. Yeah, and there is increased risk of cervical cancer rising from infections, a viral infection from human papilloma virus, because of these girls getting married to polygamous partners. Yeah, there is also a neonatal death. Their children, their babies will die, or if they don't die, they will live an ill health. Yeah, because of infection, because of prematurity. They are born when they are premature. They have nutritional deficiencies. They have low birth weight. But a lot on the effects is also on the psychological aspect. As I said, there will be depression from fistula, emotional distress from meeting husband's sexual demands, childbearing and child rearing. They will have regret, anxiety, and worry about their future and the livelihoods of their children. They will have suicidal attempts due to gender based violence or depression. They will lose emotional development. And socially, they will lose relationship confidence and ability to maintain relationships. They will lose education and financial opportunities. They will lose their childhood. They will not be able to play with their peers. They will be exposed to domestic violence, and they will be seen as low people in the society. They will have power imbalance. They have been married to older partner, and they will have power imbalance in family decision making processes. They have inability to plan or manage families, yeah, because they have low influence on control of children and less ability to make decisions about their health, nutrition, and and household management. Spiritually, they will hate God, they hate their faith, they blame or curse God, they feel guilt and shame, they ask themselves, oh God, why me? What have I done? So you see, these are terrible effects and many more I could still talk about. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Dr. Daniel, for that passionate and elaborate educative talk that you've just given us. Miss Faith, would you agree with what Dr. Daniel has said, or you'd have other contrary views or other negative effects of child marriages?
I completely agree with what Mr. Daniel has said. In fact, you see, everything he has highlighted, the medical implications, all leading to them having psychological issues, being depressed, low self-esteem, and all the likes might leave them either suicidal, like they will either commit suicide or look for an escape. By escape, they might just look for something that will make them happy because on default, the human mind is channeled to just do something that will make them happy. So they might go into negative biases, but all in an attempt to make them happy. So they could begin to use substances, alcohol. They might even become more sexually active. They might become sex maniacs, just anything that they feel that will make them happy. Once they begin to do this largely affects them because, of course, this biases has an impact on them and then the society at large. You find out that because they've taken substances and they're happy about it, for instance, their body begins to grow tolerant and then they need more substances. And because probably in the first place, what caused this child marriage was poverty, as they said, there'll be not so much resources to continue. So they begin to scheme ways to continue with these bad vices that's giving them temporal happiness. So they begin to steal, go into sex, become sex workers, commercial sex workers, just all the vices that will destroy the society at large, right? They begin to go into it. Remember, all this is aimed at making themselves happy. When they are temporarily happy from it, they go to these things that make them feel bad about themselves, feel guilty, especially when it's not in line with what they've learned as children, as good norms of their society or of their family. So they are trying to medicate the pain, or they're trying to get rid of hurt and pain by doing this thing, this escape, this using all these substances. When they use it, they get temporary happiness. Once it fizzles out of them, they go back depressed, feeling bad. Oh, they've stolen, and yet they still have to steal again. So it's just like they are trapped now, like from staying in a marriage you do not want because of poverty. You get to begin to do things that make you very uncomfortable and push you to more poverty, and then the circle continues, and then everybody in the society sees you as a thief. Like, they begin to label you. You have a labeling on yourself, either as a thief, commercial sex worker, or somebody that is just has low self-esteem, you cannot talk, and then it continues like that and like that, and you are not productive in the society. The society begins to become more economically ruined, or go down economically, and then the circle continues. It just leaves a toxic atmosphere from the family down to the society they belong to.
Thank you very much, Ms. Faith, on that elaborate and educative piece of information that you've given us. Now, here would be my question. You talked about these children indulging in to become sex workers and so forth. So, would you say between child marriage and child prostitution, which one would be better?
Wow. Okay. The word better means, if you want to analyze the word better, it means something has to improve on what is good. I mean, better. So let's even look at it first. Both child prostitution and child marriage, like, none of them is good. Not about better. If you say which is worse, then I'll say, well, two of them negatively affect the individuals, like negatively affects them. So I can't say which is worse, but for better, I don't think none is even good to start with.
So, we'd say they are both bad. They're terribly bad. None of them can ever have a good virtue.
Yes, not
Yeah,
to
I
talk of better.
agree with you. Dr. Daniel, would you have a contrary say to that?
No, I absolutely agree with Faith. In fact, the question which you've asked should have been asked the other way around. Between child marriage and child prostitution, which one is worse? Because actually none has been, none is good, not even better. Yeah. Uh, Both are human rights abuses and exploitation. Both have the same causes and negative effects to the girl child at equal measure. And you see the notion that child marriage prevents children from entering into prostitution. It's a false culturally constructed norm. In fact, evidence shows that it is poverty which makes children vulnerable to transactional relationships, which in some cases would put us to engage in transactional relationships and sex in order to secure resources for the family, even though these relationships actually frequently lead to child marriage and premature and premarital pregnancy. So, in a sense, it is not true to say that girls actually get married to prevent child prostitution, as people, as cultures may think. Yeah, the reason for child prostitution is actually poverty. And the causes of child marriage, as we already said, are poverty, culture, religion, lack of access to education, conflicts, and having ineffective laws. So none is better, none is good, both are bad, both are worse because they are both human rights abuses and exploitation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Daniel. So we agree both are bad, both are worse, both are not even an option that a child should actually experience. So, Dr. Daniel, please tell us how far with the African Union campaign to end this child marriage in Africa.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So far, a lot of work has been done by African Union to end child marriage in Africa. The African Union campaign, which started in 2014 to 2018 on ending child marriage in Africa, greatly achieved um, some milestone in bringing the issue of child marriage to the forefront in the African continent, and several strengths have been achieved. Um, Member states have been engaged on child marriage, and the campaign has created some space and platform for African leaders to engage on the issue of child marriage. Yeah, and high level advocacy and events have actually been held with the heads of African states and partners coming together, civil society, in committing to ending child marriage and calling for actions. Yeah, and high-profile child marriage issues have been raised within African Union. Campaigns have been brought to African Union agenda with involving partners in Peace and Security Council. Partner commitments with resources have been put together. Campaign has actually generated commitment and enthusiasm from multiple partners towards supporting it, and advancement in African policy and normative framework has actually been made tangible, including adopting African common position on the AU campaign to end child marriage in Africa. And so there have been a lot of national results, gains that have been made from revision of legislation to production of national plans to end child marriage. I witnessed that in South Sudan. And campaign has directly enhanced the evidence base to support programming to end child marriage in terms of country-specific examples, like I already said. And so, where are we currently? A review has been done. You see, the campaign period ended. It's 5 years since the campaign started. And so UNICEF did a review of the impact and gaps about the African Union campaign, the progress made so far, and it has been seen that still there are gaps. The conceptual framework of the African Union campaign actually needs to be updated. Yeah, it is very ambitious. It has inadequate distinction between what the campaign is able to achieve and the subsequent implementation and outcomes, yeah, from member states. For example, issues of birth registrations are not being addressed through the campaign. So there's a recommendation to have some theories of change developed, yeah, in consultation with partners, to have their inputs into the results indicating success, to ensure that the campaigns reflect to the aims of enhancing awareness of the effects of child marriage. And again, monitoring and evaluation aspects of the campaign needs to be streamlined. You see, the campaign had combined monitoring of campaign activities with data on child marriage indicators. And it's been recommended that there is need, yeah, to revise the monitoring and evaluation framework in light of the newly developed theory of change for the campaign. And then this monitoring of campaign and child marriage indicators are actually two core components of the framework that needs to be carried forward. African head of state needs to actually be targeted to have a very strict focus and to lead their countries in the forefront. There is a recommendation to ensure that the campaign should have additional staff and a committee to ensure mobilization of resources, to ensure budget issues are transparently coordinated, yeah, and that all limited resources available should be put together to draw partners' willingness to support some of the national campaigns, and the narrative of the campaign needs actually to be adjusted. The campaign needs to reframe in terms of girls as right holders. Girls must participate. Girls must be brought into the forefront of the campaign as champions of the campaign. There is need to partner and engage and support it so that all resources and activities and advocacy and survivors of child marriage brought
Uh, Dr. Daniel?
together into regional and to do that. So yes, it's something that can be carried forward with implementation of the recommendations that have been made. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Daniel. Now, I hope that actually the persons responsible for the AU campaign can actually have a view of what we have just discussed here so that they can put actually more of the girl child at the forefront of this campaign so that we have better results. So, Miss Faith, I would say, what is the position of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child and African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child? What is their position as of now in relation to child marriages?
Okay. They believe a child has a right to protection. I mean, they believe their government they belong to, should protect them. They believe they have a say as to when they should get married. You know, they believe individuals should have a say as to when they should get married. They also believe that anything that pertains a child, whatever a child has an opinion, their opinion should be heard. So anything that concerns them, you know, they have a right to have an opinion. They believe they have a right to survival. They have a right to development. I mean, they believe they have a right to good education. Of course, child marriage will not give them room to grow their education career. Right, child marriage. They believe they have a right to good medical, sound health, and of course, like my colleague mentioned, of all the illnesses that could come with child marriage. They believe, you know, a child has a right to sound health. So, you know, these are what they believe. They believe they should be able to survive. They have right to survive. They have right to good governance. They have rights to air their opinion. They have the right to sound education. They have rights to say what they want. They have the right to enjoy their childhood, especially. They have rights to sound psychological welfare. So they have rights to good environment because all these I've mentioned, child marriage will not enable children to have rights to all this. So according to United Nations Convention with regards to the rights of a child, you know, they believe a child has the right to all of these.
Thank you very much, Miss Faith. Now, as we're almost coming to the end of our session, what would actually be your recommendations, or we would say the solutions that we would have for child marriages in Africa?
I I believe a major cause of bad behavior or bad choices is depends on your core beliefs, your mindset. I believe for people to act wrongly means they think wrongly. So, and that means I I feel while we are making sure people get more knowledge or they are educated in Africa, and then we are moving with our campaigns, making people understand the rights of a child, making people understand the rights of humans first, then the rights of a child, and then not allowing people, bully others. By bullying others, not allowing the government, parents, ethnic group, cultures, or religion bully children. While they are educating people, on this, I believe they should also provide cognitive professionals. So while they are checking the mindset, because I believe, like my colleague said in one of his illustrations, he made mention that um, a religious leader said, no matter what the law says, he cannot go against the Holy Bible. Now, you see, even if you educate him and show him the rights, or you jail him for going contrary to what he think is wrong, because the problem is embedded in his core belief. Even if he comes out of jail or face the penalties according to law, because his mindset is traditional, like it's pivoted on what he believes, it might not do much as regards to people under him. So I think when you change the mindset, that means the irrational thoughts that birth that behavior, while we have professionals working on the mindset, to make it a fertile ground for education to fall on, for new knowledge to fall on, for the rights that we are promoting to fall on, the campaign and everything we're doing. So I recommend that professionals join in the campaign as they are doing already.
Much. Thank you very much, Miss Faith. And to you, Mr. Daniel, what would you recommend? Just two recommendations.
Um, thank you, moderator. I think this is a good question, because at the end of it all, we talk about effects or causes and effects of child marriage, and we see what African Union and member states are doing. The question would, and they still see the out of 10 countries in the world with the highest prevalence of child marriage, 9 out are from Africa. Then the critical question we ask is, so what? So what are we going to do? We have done a lot so
True.
far, but we still, Africa is leading. Yeah. So
Yes.
while some good work is really being done, it is true to admit that the progress in reducing child marriage in Africa is really insufficient at current state. Actually, evidence shows that it will still take another 100 years to eliminate the practice. So what do we really need to do? We need to see a meaningful change into this practice, as my colleague is arguing it out. Member states must be um, made to demonstrate political commitment, provide the needed resources, and support the ongoing ground interventions to the very dot of all actions. And so from immediate to medium and long term, I recommend the following steps to be taken. And please let me walk you through this quickly. As I already
Yes.
stated, we need a robust policy action at African Union level. The African Union should act on the recommendations from the review of its campaign, yeah, by strengthening partnerships, accountability, and sharpen the focus and fine-tune the narrative and conceptual framework of the campaign, so that these efforts will accelerate the end to child marriage in Africa at a faster rate. Member states should harmonize their customary laws on child marriage with their state laws, their state's constitution, to define and adhere to minimum age of marriage, which is above 18 years, as provided in the CRC and African Charter. Member states should commit and allocate funds to support the campaigns and community-led interventions to end child marriage. Interventions must target and empower, engage, and work with religious leaders, traditional leaders, youth, parents, teachers, and other gender champions, including working through policy reviews, campaigns, policy implementation, and accountability mechanisms. There is need to ramp up community level campaigns in all countries, support and fund interventions that empower girls, access to information network, and sexual and reproductive health services. There is need to finance initiatives that target girls and women from poor families and regions of African states to get incentives for them to remain in schools. African Union and member states must allocate education fund for girls from poor countries and regions where child marriage is highly prevalent, so that they get access to high quality education. There is need to set up an African policy center for prevention and response to child marriage, to foster research, train advocates, and change leaders, so that they also be able to review policies and provide technical guidance to the African Union and member states. There is need to form an African Union Committee on Monitoring and Accountability to be able to monitor the progress of African Union campaign and to hold member states accountable for their failures. And lastly, there is need to sanction African member states who do not harmonize their customary laws with states' constitutions to put the 2025. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Mr. Daniel.
Joy. I'm done. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Daniel. I think that almost closes our session. So now we're just going to answer a few questions from our viewers on our social media platforms. And some of these questions are specifically directed. So this is to Miss Faith.
Okay.
Yes. It says that there are so many NGOs distributing condoms in the school to children instead of teaching them abstinence. Is it not better to get them married at an early age instead?
Of course not. Early age marriage has proven to destroy individuals. So when you are looking at an individual, you're looking at what is the best, what is priority to the welfare of that child. The fact that education is wrongly or information is wrongly um, channeled wrongly to children, the fact that children are taught the wrong things doesn't mean, the wrong effect. Like two wrongs don't make it right. Two wrongs don't make it right. So the fact that they are educated wrongly or they are taught the wrong things doesn't mean, a wrong solution should be given. I think instead of marrying children out, they should be taught, the disadvantages of having sex, at an early as a child. Like, okay, they should be taught how not to provoke their emotions as it can interfere with their life, in the long run, than to be giving out, because it's the same thing. Giving them out to early marriage and teaching them how to use condom is almost going to have almost the same effects. It's just that child marriage will have, more negative effects. And we aim at making sure that a child is sound psychologically and medically. So I think educating them properly is better than even giving them off to get married at an early age.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Faith. I hope our viewer you've got your answer. And then this is to Dr. Daniel. It appears Dr. Daniel is blaming culture and religion. Doesn't government actually have roles to play in eradicating poverty and provide education to the girl child?
Um, yes, the government does have a role to eradicate poverty. But you see, if you ask um, what is it that the government must do to eradicate poverty, it is not that the government should distribute money to all families. That's not true. It is only when you ensure opportunities available for everyone, of course, ensuring stability, which is our biggest problem in Africa, ensuring employment opportunities, yes, that the government can do, yeah. But you see, child marriage cannot be taken at an expense of lack of opportunities because it is an abuse to human rights. And cultures and religions are largely blamed on that because evidence has already shown that even if they marry off these daughters, the resources they get from this dowry doesn't actually alleviate the poverty. So yes, the government has a big role to do, and I already pointed out that girls and families from poor countries should be prioritized, given incentives so that these girls remain in schools, and give opportunities to these poor families to be able to generate income, and also getting opportunities for these girls to remain in schools in terms of access to high quality education. But in absence of all this, it does not given families and societies a ticket to marry their children off because girl child child marriage doesn't solve the issues of poverty. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Daniel. And there's a final question that goes to both of you, both Miss Faith and Dr. Daniel. It says, is child marriage only for girls or boys are also affected by it? So you can have 1 minute each. Yes, Miss Faith.
Marriage affects both children. I wanted to bring out that both the girl child and the boy child, both largely
Is it my network or we have
maybe not the
lost you,
right
Miss
way.
Faith? Oh, okay. Yeah. I think we have lost with Dr. Daniel. Are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you, Joy.
Dr. Daniel? Okay. Yes. Oh, I think we have lost Miss Faith due to network connections. One of the challenges we're facing in Africa at large. But Dr. Daniel, you can give us your opinion. Do you think that child marriages is best to only the girl child or also the boys affected by it?
You see, child marriage also affect boy child, but at a minimal magnitude because usually the perpetrators and those that encourage child marriage are not only the parents but also the people that look for wives, the men that marry these children. Much as some societies, some cultures in Africa allow the boy child to get married early because of arguments to preserve um, family lineage early, like you've lost a father or you're the only son among girls, and these girls have been married, and there is a lot of cows, a lot of resources. So it is these cultures that would encourage the boy child to marry early. But even then, they will not marry actually. You'll find it rarely below 15 years. And if they marry early, they would be supported. Some other issues that uh, include marriage of boy child early. It's actually wife inheritance of wife from African cultures is very common in South Sudan. That's where you'll see a boy child getting married. But you see entirely the responsibility of the wife, the responsibility of taking care of the entire family doesn't rest on this boy child, even if he is allowed by the family to marry early. So he has support system in place. He doesn't suffer the physical effects, negative effects that the girl child suffer from. And so you would see, even if it is there in low rates, the effects are actually low to nearly nothing. And so that's why we tend to not speak so much about boy child marriage, but it is there. It does happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Daniel. I think Miss Faith is not yet back. She's trying to get to that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, 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 I can hear you.
Okay. So,
So,
mhm.
yes, please.
If I get you correctly, you are asking if it affects both gender, the child
Yes,
marriage. Yes. So
yes.
I was saying it negatively affects both gender, and I was trying to highlight how. Looking at it physically, it affects the female gender more, saying that they have to go through medical illnesses. It causes them to have the whole VVF affects them and then exposes them to cancer, cervical cancer, and the likes. Then it makes them depressed and all of the psychological effects. Having said this, these women give birth to the male child. Now, because the whole child marriage um, construct provides a dysfunctional atmosphere for raising a child, it affects any male child that is given birth to in that family. So any child that's given birth to in a dysfunctional home is largely affected negatively, whether it's a boy or it's a girl. That's one. Two, the boy is learning the wrong norms from a child marriage atmosphere. So you have a child that a male child, he learns, okay, you're supposed to grow up, have a girl that you treat as, as a second, um, less of human or less of yourself, which is not even good for his, mental health, because he gets to be more violent from that kind of mindset. Apart from that, he sees because he's emotionally attached to his mother or his sister, he sees what's happening to them. His head might not view it as evil, but he will see it as, I thank God I am not a girl child. Do you understand? And that negatively affects how he views the girl child or himself. So it affects both gender, maybe for the males psychologically, because they are taught they have to work hard and not for the right reason. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. So all of this,
Yes, Miss Faith.
yeah. So all of this contributes to, all of these are reasons why I believe child marriage is not gender selective. You know, UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, or the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, I believe is done to promote children. They have the welfare of children in view, because their aim is to see to the welfare of children, whatever gender it is, whether male or female. So any practice that is ongoing that is detrimental to any of the gender, they see how they can, work on that practice so we can have equal human rights as humans.
Okay. Thank you very much, Miss Faith. I think our viewers have got an elaborate and very educative session from both our guest speakers, Dr. Daniel and Miss Faith. Thank you. And I would like to invite the president of Fridaus Integrated Services Limited to actually give a vote of thanks. Mr. President, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Adeke Joy Mary. And I want to especially appreciate our invited guest. But before I do that, I also have a very quick comment regarding the question asked by Ms. Adeke, that whose responsibility it is to determine at what age a child should get married. Our guests are of the opinion that it should be the exclusive reserve of the child. I just want to share my own thoughts that as much as, yes, that should be encouraged, the traditional African society presupposes that parents also do have responsibilities in terms of guidance, in terms of investigating the family to which that child is to be married. And that is a duty that we should not take away from the parents. The parents at times can also determine the readiness of a child financially, mentally, and emotionally. And so as much as we are going to, give much of the duty to the parties involved, the responsibility of the parents, especially in those areas I've highlighted, should also be encouraged and promoted. Having said that, I want to especially thank Dr. Daniel for this elaborate discussion, for sharing your insights, your research, your thoughts on this very germane topic, which is the child marriage in Africa. Dr. Daniel, thank you so much. Also to Miss Faith. Miss Faith, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. I know we had some technical challenges along the line, but because of your commitment and dedication to this program and this project, we've managed to overcome all of that. So, Miss Faith, thank you so much. To the team, because this program would not have happened except for the sacrifice of so many people behind the screen. We want to appreciate our Director of Logistics and Operation for the technical input. Mr. Swale, thank you so much. Our media manager, Adeke Joy Mary. Adeke currently is running a postgraduate in law at Law Development Center, and it's a very crazy program. The workload is killing. It's equivalent of Nigerian law school for those who are in Nigeria. But notwithstanding that, she manages every time to host her show. This morning she was telling me her phone crashed and she had to run to the market fixed just to ensure that this program holds. So Adeke John Mary, thank you so much for your commitment and dedication. To our South Sudanese coordinator, country coordinator, for giving us Dr. Daniel, Mr. Daniel Ayak Duwom. Thank you so much for your support. And also our Director of Administration, that is Mr. John from Nigeria. Mr. John, thank you so much for giving us Miss Faith. To everyone, Director of Finance in Australia, thank you, ma'am. And to everyone who has participated or supported this program, our country coordinator in Uganda, that is Ms. Comfort, country coordinator, Tanzania, Kenya, Rwanda, Mr. Patrick, our country coordinator for Zambia, that's Miss Marvelous. Yeah, so to everyone who has supported this program, my final take will be, it is our collective responsibility. The government, the parents, the cultural leaders, the religious leaders, all of them will all have responsibility to ensure that this practice, if not completely eliminated, at least it's reduced to the barest minimum. We can be marrying out a child and expect that child to properly function in the marriage. They're not mentally mature for that. They're not emotionally mature for that. And even physically, as we've heard from our guests, they are not matured for that. So we thank you. We thank everyone. And then we hope that this discussion, we create better discussion so that the policymakers, the leaders across Africa, they will engage everyone, all the stakeholders, to ensure that this problem is fixed. So Adeke, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This is for our viewers, a recording of this session and very many other sessions that we have conducted and more to come ahead, and any other information in relation to Firdaus Integrated Services. On Facebook, we are at Firdaus Integrated Services. On YouTube, we are still at Firdaus Integrated Services. On Twitter, we are at Firdaus Integral 1. On Instagram, we are at Firdaus_Integral 1. On LinkedIn, we are at Firdaus Integrated Services Limited, and our official website is www.firdausintegratedservices.com. Thank you very much, viewers and our guests, for tuning in, and have a lovely afternoon. Goodbye.
It's still morning in Nigeria, so good morning. Bye.
Bye and good afternoon. It was a wonderful.
It should be evening.
Thanks for hosting us.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Okay, now bye.